This is Brad Keithley, Managing Director of Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Welcome to the weekly Top 3, the top 3 things on our mind here at Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets for the week of August 24th, 2026. The weekly Top 3 is a regular segment on The Michael Dukes Show. The show broadcasts on both Facebook Live and YouTube Live, as well as via streaming audio from the show's website, weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. I join Michael weekly in the first hour of Tuesday's show from 6:10 to 7 a.m. for a discussion between the two of us about our 3 issues. We post the podcast of our discussion following the show on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Substack pages, also on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets website, as well as the project's page on national blog site, medium.com. You can find past episodes of the weekly Top 3 also at the same locations. Keep in mind that in addition to these podcasts, during the week, you can also follow and participate in the discussion with us of these and other issues affecting Alaska's fiscal and economic condition by following us on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets Facebook page and through our posts on Twitter. This week, our top 3 issues are these. First, we explain that while many candidates say they are concerned about middle-class affordability, most really aren't, and in fact, favor policies that would generally make it worse. Second, we discuss a critical issue that's missing from the discussion about the Southcentral gas crisis. And third, we discuss the consequences at both the national and state levels of the U.S. being $40 trillion in debt. And now, let's join Michael.
But here we are. So let's get started with number 1 of the weekly top 3. Many candidates say they're concerned about affordability for the middle class. But are they really? Are they really, Brad? You tell us here.
So this got triggered by an ad I saw for Click Bishop in the last days of the campaign. It may have even been on Tuesday, the final election day. But the ad was basically vote for Click. He'll take care of middle working class families. He's focused on affordability, and this is the way he's focused on affordability. And I sat there for a second and I said, that's just not true. So here's the reason I said that. Middle class, as we've talked about previously on the show, middle-class Alaskans are better off with a full PFD and other alternatives for raising revenues. They have more income. They have more money in their pockets, even after you account for all the taxes. They have more income, more money in their pockets. Those families, those middle-income families, are better off with full PFDs and lower and revenues coming from other areas. Click, on the other hand, has been a consistent, he and Natasha go hand in hand on this. They have been consistent advocates for PFD cuts. They've been consistent advocates for taking money out of the pockets of middle-income Alaska families and converting it over to government and then spending it on select projects and select middle-income families and select lower income families and frankly select corporations through tax credits and select upper income families through various means, including the lack of taxes and including spending on things that upper income families benefit from, such as childcare. So when Click says, I'm standing up for affordability for middle income families, he's not. What Click is standing for, and other candidates, I've seen other candidates use that phrase. They similarly are afflicted with this problem. What he's standing for is, I'm for some middle income families. I'm for some lower income families. I'm for some corporations. I'm for some upper income families. And the way I'm going to do that is take money out of the pockets of middle and lower income Alaska families. And so he's going to make middle income families worse off. and then say that he's in favor of affordability by redirecting that money through government, redirecting that money to some selected middle and upper and lower income Alaska families and corporations, some of them. So some of them may be better off. His favored group may be better off. But as a whole, middle income working Alaska families are worse off through the policies that Click and others are pursuing.
All the meanwhile, the government is skimming the cream off the money that they're funneling through the government to the special chosen middle class group of people. So they take $1 million, and what actually gets down to the people is, 600,000 or 500,000. I mean, it's the whole thing. It's this machine where it's just self-perpetuating all these problems going through.
Yeah. I mean, typically when you hear others saying that, when you hear others saying that they're, focused on affordability for middle income families, what they're saying is we're going to take money from others, good, bad, or indifferent. What they're really saying is we're going to take money from others, take money from corporations, take money from upper income families. We're going to take money from others and redirect it to our favorite groups within the middle income bracket and the lower income bracket. And some corporations and some upper income families that qualify for various, tax credits and other government benefits. But typically that's what you hear saying. But in Alaska, we're unique because of the PFD. But in Alaska, what you're doing is you're taking money out of middle income Alaska families as a whole, making them worse off, leaving them with lower income. You're taking money out of middle income Alaska families as a whole in order to benefit these select groups, including government, including the salaries for the legislators, for example. And so it's just, the hypocrisy of this argument that Click makes and others are making, and I'm sure we're going to hear Begich make it. We may even hear the Republican candidates make it when they talk about corporate tax credits. I'm sure we're going to continue hearing this, but let's focus on what's going on here. We're taking money out of middle income Alaska families, working Alaska families, the ones that are leaving the state, the ones that are out migrating, the category that's out migrating. We're taking money out of their pockets and leaving them worse off. We aren't helping them as a whole. We're helping select groups of them, but we aren't helping them as a whole. We're making them worse off. And the hypocrisy of Click's claims and those others who are making that claim is just huge.
It's interesting because, again, ICER was pretty clear in their latest report. And we're not talking about the 2017 report, 2016, 2017 report, right? We're talking about the report that they gave to the legislature at the beginning of this session, where they said all these other options, everything being equal, everything on the table, if you would just give people a full PFD or, the 50-50, however you wanted to calculate it, and had a sales, they'd have 30% more money in their pocket to do this thing. And yet these guys are running around talking about affordability, which again is, it's to me one of the more ridiculous phrases out there, because it's kind of that amorphous, means so many different things to so many different people. It's kind of a catch-all. But again, you don't really mean it, because again, if you really meant it, you wouldn't be taking all this money out of the pocket of Alaskans when they need it most. And this is where we're at. We're at the point where Alaskans are going to need it most, with costs going up and everything else. It's again, you called it, Brad, right at the beginning. It's not true. That's the thing. Oh, I'm here for affordability. That's not true. If you were, you wouldn't be doing the things that you've been doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah. And in the face of, people will say, well, Alaskans can afford it. We have out-migration. We have the absolute proof in the pudding. When you look at the numbers, people are leaving. The Alaska middle income bracket is going down in numbers because of out-migration. That's the bulk of who's leaving the state. So they're voting with their feet. We're seeing, we're not, this isn't hypothetical. This isn't, academia. This isn't, This isn't, well, I can calculate this as another way. We're seeing people voting with their feet, not to be an Alaskan. And it's just for candidates to run around and say, I'm for affordability, I'm going to stop this out migration, I'm going to bring this under control by taking your money and redirecting it to these select groups that hopefully are going to vote for me and give me campaign donations. It's just sheer hypocrisy.
Yeah, I'm going to fix the fact that you don't have enough money and you need more affordability by taking more of your money and giving it to somebody else, because they're the ones that are truly suffering. You're not suffering. Really, you're not suffering. These people are really suffering. And I know better than you how that money should be spent. And so I'll take it and you should give it to me, which again is the crux of the whole problem to begin with. It's somehow people like Natasha and Click all of a sudden somehow know how better than you to spend your money and make it and make it work. Because I can remember remember how Natasha feels about the PFD. Remember?
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
I mean, that's just where she's at, right? That's where she's at. And that's kind of that's the whole cadre of those in the legislature that have continued to vote to cut the PFD, Brad.
Yep, it is, Michael. I mean, they know better. They think, that they can redirect this money and appease select middle income and upper income and corporate groups, appease them by taking money out of the pockets of middle income families and redirecting it to those other groups, and that somehow life will be better off because we've made middle income Alaskans poorer, but all these other people better off. And it's just, when I saw that Click was making this, again, I've seen this argument in other states. And again, I sort of understand the theory behind the argument in other states, but it doesn't work here because of the source of revenue that we're using to fund government in this state. And to see Click pick up on that and to see that argument, my eyes stopped on that and went, what is wrong with this picture? And then they shifted into what is wrong with this person that they think this argument makes sense. We're going to see it again during campaign. This isn't the last time I'll talk about it, but I just wanted to stop here in the midst of all this, and having seen Click explicitly make that argument, I wanted to stop here and just call BS on it.
Yeah.
Can I say that on the air?
Yeah, no. This little Bert Stedman just calling some Bert Stedman on it.
That was just BS.
I mean, that's what we're doing right now, right?
I mean, I just want to call BS on it and set the stage for, as I say, I'm sure we're going to hear Begich talk about this and others. As others talk about this affordability issue as we go forward, set the stage for my repeated complaints about how much hypocrisy we're seeing in action with respect to those claims.
If there was no hypocrisy, we would have no crassy at all. So that's how it is around here. John just said, I've argued with people many times that say we should just be happy for what we get. I don't care if the PFD is $1,000 or $5,000. Set this, but don't tell me we can't afford it and then still go ahead and spend it. I mean, John's 100% right. I mean, if you want to look at all the things in government, and Brad and I have had this conversation several times, essentially, the PFD is the only thing that's really funded and paid for 100% fully every year. I mean, it's right. I mean, right, Brad? It comes right out of the ERA. It's fully funded and paid for. They decided to divert the money to other things.
Yeah, it is by statute. It's money that is designated. And the ledge finance definition of designated is money that's set by statute, money that's set aside by statute. It is designated for the permanent fund. Says right there in statute. You can calculate it in statute. Designated for the permanent fund. And so, when they divert it, when they called it, it's general funds, unrestricted general funds. It's not. By the legislative finance's own definition, it's not unrestricted general funds. It is designated funds, what's referred to as DGF. The thing that's not being funded, the thing that's not funded, the thing where the deficit comes from, is all the spending that occurs in excess of traditional revenues, oil and other things, traditional revenues, plus the portion of the POMV draw that is not designated for permanent fund dividends. That's where the deficits are coming from. And what's happening is, John's exactly right. What's happening is they're spending the money. They're spending the BFD money. They're just not spending it they're not distributing it for the purpose that it's designated by statute. The Supreme Court said they can annually, as part of the budget cycle, the legislature can redirect the money. That's what the Supreme Court said. And by redirecting money, the Supreme Court really meant taxing the amounts that are designated to go to individuals. Supreme Court said that, and the legislature's done that for the last 10 years. But that doesn't make the funds undesignated. It doesn't make them unrestricted. It makes them simply designated funds that can be redirected. The legislature can do the same thing with respect to university tuition. University tuition is revenue to the state, designated by statute, paid to the state, designated by statute to be distributed back to the universities for purposes of their courses and operations. But it doesn't have to be. It's simply that it's designated by statute. Well, the permanent fund dividend is the same thing. Yes, on an annual basis you can redirect it, but that doesn't make it any less designated.
Right. Doesn't change the color of the spots that are on it. Still got the designated designation. The you know what I mean. And that's right. And that's 100% right. And it would be nice if they wanted to treat it, like it was supposed to be treated. But unfortunately, again, they've caught the politicians' disease, which is they know better than you how that money should be spent. And so they're going to take it from you and give it to some other poor, unfortunate soul who really needs it compared to you, right?
Like the oil corporations in terms of the GVR tax credits. I mean, that's
right.
That's who it's going to.
Yeah.
I mean, by reason of the reduction in revenue that has to be made up from some other revenue source, or reason of those tax credits, it's going to them in addition to others.
Let's move on to number 2 here, and get into the details of this. Number 2 of the weekly top 3 is as follows. The thing missing from the discussion about the South Central gas crisis, and again, the more that I hear about this, Brad, the more that I follow along, I'm watching a little bit of this infighting and backbiting going on in the public eye, which is kind of interesting to see. John Sims says one thing, and then Chugach is like, "Well, John, we told you we'd do this if you just," and John's like, "Oh, but the thing," and then he's like, it's like, all of a sudden it's like, okay, wait a second. Is there really a crisis? Or I just get this feeling that we're being played in certain ways because of the way that these utilities are kind of backbiting against each other. Then they had this big meeting on Thursday, which was really a big CYA meeting for a lot of the legislature, but we're going to investigate. We're going to have all these people come in and testify and tell us exactly what the thing is. And then Kathy Giesel has the audacity to say something like, "Well, we really need to do something." And I'm just like, chick, you were going to do something, but anyway, I just had to laugh. So here we are. The utilities, obviously, there's a problem, Brad. The real thing missing from the discussion about the South Central gas crisis is what? I mean, other than the truth and, responsibility, what else missing?
Well, Michael, I will say that there is a problem. There is a crisis this year in the sense that NSTAR still hasn't filled its storage. And it's still, at least when I checked yesterday, it's still shortfalling on even the capacity. It's not putting as much in storage as it could be because it's not getting enough gas to fill storage. And I think that, as Sims in this regard is correctly outlined, he relies on storage to meet peak day winter demand. If he doesn't have the gas in storage, or if he's taken it out in prior in the winter, and we hit a cold snap in February or March, we hit a late cold snap, he may not have it to deliver those supplies, and so that is a crisis. But what's bothering me, I mean, we're there. There is virtually nothing you can do other than redirecting the hex volumes and maybe some of the Hillcorp volumes, redirecting them into NSTAR storage. We're there. There's virtually nothing you can do to get ready for this winter. What is really striking me as I listen to all this stuff is we're not preparing at all for the winter after this. I mean, we're in it for this winter. We got to deal with however we're going to deal with it. But the winter after this may be worse because we have Cook Inlet decline. We have decline in production in Cook Inlet, notwithstanding what John Hendricks is saying. We have overall decline in Cook Inlet. And we may be in a worse situation next winter. And what are we doing to prepare for that? So, I listened to all the presentations and all the legislators' questions during the meeting on Thursday. The one I chuckled at most was Donna Mears saying, we got to have more storage. Okay, storage doesn't do you any good. More storage doesn't do you any good if you don't have the gas. I mean, we've got enough storage now for the gas that's being produced. We got enough storage now to meet this winter's demand. If we get enough gas in the storage. Storage is a longer term problem, but it's not an immediate problem. It's not a this year or a next year or the year beyond that. Gas supply is the problem in the coming years. The two things the one thing I did hear that is addressing that issue, the what happens next year issue, is the discussion about Bluecrest and the discussion about trying to get Bluecrest either to drill wells and bring additional gas production on out of their field down by Anchor Point, or the Cosmopolitan field, which is down by Anchor Point, either that or additional drilling and development elsewhere. Those things help. The thing that didn't go mentioned, or if it was mentioned, it was only in passing and I didn't hear it as I listened to the meeting, is imports. Now, I know people, immediately want to react. Oh, we can't have imports. We got all this gas up on the slope. Well, that's a long way off. That's several years off. And so the thing that the gas supply we don't have that other parts of the world do have that are facing, this sort of decline issue, this sort of low production issue. The thing we don't have is imports. Now we have import proposals. Actually, we have three of them. We have NSTAR and Glenfarne. We have Hillcorp with the reversal of the old ConocoPhillips Kenai LNG plant. And we have a third one, a floating LNG proposal with respect to the utilization of the Osprey platform out in the Cook Inlet. We have three import proposals, but none of those are off the ground. I don't think, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think Glenfarne has even applied for the permits it needs to build the import plant that NSTAR says they're relying on for imports. I don't think they've even applied for it. And when you hear Glenfarne talk, they don't talk at all about the import plant, which they're on the hook for. They've contracted with NSTAR to do. You don't hear them talk at all about that. They're all about the exports. I understand that. I understand you want to talk about exports, but you've committed to build an import plant. Where is that? And then when you hear NSTAR talk about the existing import plant we have, the one that could be ready to go in the time frame that we need it to go in, the Hillcorp turnaround of the old Kenai LNG plant, NSTAR says they don't want to contract with them.
Right. Which I don't understand. Why do we want to build out a a plant that's going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars more instead of turning around the old plant? They want to build a new one across the way. Why compete? Why can't we all just get along? I mean, that's really the question, right?
Well, it's one of the questions, but the deal is this: we do have a crisis. I'll grant you that we're not getting enough gas today. yesterday, the day before that, the month before that, the several months before that. We're not getting enough gas into storage to meet peak demand if we have a late cold winter. If we have a cold winter through January and February, and then we have a late spike. We're not getting enough gas in storage to meet that demand. That is a crisis. But there's very little we can do about that right now other than divert the hill court, the hex volumes. But we need to be looking also at the year beyond this. And legislators aren't doing that. They're just all focused on the headlines of the coming year. Responsible legislators, people who are really concerned about this issue, need to be worried about the year beyond that and the year beyond that and the several years beyond that, if the big line's ever built, but until the big line comes into effect. We need to be concerned about those years. And the only way we're going to deal with those years is by having an import facility up and running, and we're not even talking about it. So there's a huge issue. I grant you that. And there's a lot of discussion about it. I grant you that. But we're not talking about the right thing. We're not talking about the thing that actually needs to be addressed and actually needs to be put in place to address those issues next year and in the years beyond.
Well, I mean, again, this is the lack of planning, right? I mean, this is a continual problem with the legislature, whether it's a lack of planning for energy needs, whether it's a lack of planning for fiscal discipline or financial issues. This is an overall problem, and it's just bleeding over into every other, bleeding over into every other issue that we have here in the state. Yeah, I'm sorry. Brad just said responsible unicorns. I mean, responsible legislators, which is like a unicorn. I mean, good luck with that. Brad, so where do we go from here? I mean, what happens? I mean, if in a perfect world, John Sims and NSTAR and Chugach would all come together and figure it out and work together versus kind of work at odds with each other. Because I just feel like they're kind of working at loggerheads at this point.
They have a statute. They have a certificate obligation. They have an obligation to the citizens of the state of Alaska that they accepted when they accepted certificates for monopoly gas service in the state. They have an obligation to have supply available to meet the demands of their customers, of their certificated customers in the areas in which they're certificated. They have an obligation to do that. And NSTAR and Chugach and the others need to live up to that obligation. But more importantly, or as importantly, probably, the regulatory agency that is set up by statute, the Regulatory Commission of Alaska, that's charged with enforcing that obligation to serve, they need to step up to the plate. They had a proceeding ongoing about all of the various storage or import proposals and trying to reconcile those out. And they asked for a lot of pleadings. They asked for a lot of filings. They got all those filings, and they haven't done anything with them. I mean, if I were on the RCA, which I'm not, but if I were on the RCA, I'd be jumping up and down every day saying, we've got to do something with respect to enforcing the obligation to serve and enforcing these utilities being prepared to serve. And imports is a key part of that. And we need to sit on them and force them to get the imports ready to go. I mean, I'd have, if I were on the RCA, again, I'm not, but if I were on the RCA, I'd have the utilities in every week for weekly updates. Where are you on imports? Until I finally got an answer, and they finally started to move.
You said at one point during your explanation of number 2 here, you said, notwithstanding Hex's claims on gas in the inlet, because John Sims has said there are times when they don't have that there's not enough demand. But again, now we're finding out that really what it is it's more about demand over price, because they're contracted to provide gas at a certain price. And NSTAR wants to pay the same for the overage, and Hex is saying, no, we should get a little bit more for that. What's your take on that kind of little back and forth before we move on to number 3 here?
You said Sims, you met Hendricks in that.
I meant Hendricks, John Hendricks. Yeah, sorry.
In that case, my take on that is if I were NSTAR, and I'm not, But if I were NSTAR, I'd take the gas, and I would say we're going to dispute the price. Now Hendricks has said, well, I'm not going to sell it to you if you're not going to agree to the price. And Sims has gone to an arbitration panel, which I think is the right thing to do. That's what the contract provides. Gone to an arbitration panel for an order compelling Hendricks to sell him the gas. But I think they need to work that out. But if they can't, the arbitration panel needs to step in, or the RCA needs to step in. Somebody needs to step in. But here's the point. The point is that will help this situation. But we've now gone on. I'm concerned when you look at the storage numbers. We've now let this situation go on so long in terms of Hendricks, in terms of Hex not delivering to NSTAR and NSTAR not putting it in storage. We've gone on so long that even if Hendricks's full volumes got turned to NSTAR tomorrow, we don't have storage full by the time we hit winter. The story is all about the winter now. The story is all about what shape the winter's going to take. If the winter starts out strong, if we start out with a very cold spell and we start depleting storage, then we may not have enough when we get to March, even if we divert, if Hendricks delivers all of these volumes in.
Right.
So we've spent our cushion, spent too much time in this dispute as opposed to getting the gas into NSTAR storage.
Brad, what I don't understand is this was the argument when Hendricks came on the program and said, hey, they didn't buy any gas from us in February or whatever it was, March or February. And it turned out they didn't buy the gas because it was the excess gas that was at the higher rate, like $3 or $4 per MCF that they were going to have to buy. So it's August now. That was in February or March. What took NSTAR so long to come back to the arbitration or somebody else and say, okay, now we need somebody to decide? I mean, they had 4 or 5 months. They thought they were going to work it out, or I don't understand, because again, now we're in crisis mode. Time compression is a weapon, right? That's kind of sometimes how I feel this thing goes. What are your thoughts?
So in February, NSTAR was looking at what they thought was going to be the end of the winter season. And this dispute with Hendricks was important, but not huge, because they thought they were at the end of the winter season and they would get this resolved and get storage filled back up. What happened in March is we had a late cold spell, sharp cold spell, and they had to drain storage more to fill that cold spell. And so they started out at the end. They then start out at the end of that period, deeper in the hole than they thought they were going to be. They have more to make up. I forget the timeline that's been laid out in the various documents that are out there, but I think there was some agreement between Hex and NSTAR in the winter time frame as to pricing, and the dispute now is about what that agreement says, is about what the terms of that agreement are.
Right.
And so we've gone from a disagreement about the pricing to an agreement that was supposed to resolve that, to now another disagreement about the pricing.
Right.
And we're in the situation we're in. So it's a combination of those two things. It's a combination of the continuing, sometimes people think they have it resolved, but the continuing dispute about pricing, and and what happened in March in terms of that additional drain, that additional pull on storage that NSTAR wasn't anticipating.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because again, the first filing with the arbitration was about excess gas and the price of excess gas. Oh, we thought we were getting it at a cheaper rate. Right? And Hendricks is like, no. And now it's, we thought we were getting winter pricing because winter's over. Oh, now we can't even decide on winter when winter's over. Anyway, the problem is that we're going to lose in the end. Like you said, at some point you'd be like, I'm going to take the gas and then we'll dispute the price later, right? I'll put a stop payment on the check or whatever it is. We'll figure it out as we go forward.
Yeah, I may not be right about this, and I don't ever want to call for confiscation, but I think Hendricks's gas goes through NSTAR's system on his way to Marathon.
Oh.
So unlike the legislature, who has PFDs going through their hands and they just grab them and keep them,
Right.
I think this gas is going through the NSTAR system on its way to Marathon, but NSTAR is not pulling it. And I'm not suggesting they should. I'm not suggesting they should start, confiscating gas along the way. That would trigger off all sorts of other things. But it's the irony of the thing. It's going through NSTAR's hands on the way to Marathon.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Let's see. Hans says, good conversation. Thanks, Hans, for listening. Appreciate it on YouTube. Mark Thomas says, are the producers, Blue Crest Hill Corp, required to provide the gas that they have available?
So they're under their leases, they're required to develop and required to produce, as long as it's economic to do so. And so the answer to that is yes. Under their leases with the state, they have that obligation, but there's no obligation under the leases to who they sell it to or who they deliver it to or call for it to be delivered to. So in the case of Hex, I would say that Hex is fulfilling their obligation. In the case of Blue Crest, the state has now formally alleged, in an order that is sitting out there, said that Blue Crest has not met its obligation to develop, and if it doesn't immediately, in a very short period of time, begin drilling and developing those reserves out there, then the state's going to pull the leases and release them out. So the state is following through on trying to do that to Blue Crest. Should have done it, in retrospect, should have done it several years ago.
Right.
But Blue Crest kept saying, oh, we're going to get this. We're going to get this. We're going to get, just hang on. We're going to get it.
Well, what do you think's going to happen? 40 seconds here. What do you think's going to happen with the Blue Crest thing?
Oh, state will issue Blue Crest won't come up with the financing. They never have. State will issue the termination order. Blue Crest will challenge it in court. And so we'll just sort of wander along for a while in court on that dispute.
So it's gotten to be so blasé that this country just cannot control. And really, quite honestly, this is why I feel like politicians around the country have got this same disease of, it'll never happen to us. But it's gotten to be so kind of routine and blasé that every time we just blow through the debt ceiling in the country, it's no big deal. And this last week, it was kind of it was kind of like a non-story. It happened. A few people kind of clutched their pearls, and then we just went on. And that is the fact that we tripped over the $40 trillion in debt. That is 40,000 billion. I mean, you can't, dude, it's a lot. It's to the moon and back several times, right? It's $40 trillion in debt. And it's just another Tuesday in America. What's the issue? What's the hubbub, Bub? The consequences of being 40 trillion in debt.
Well, it's not just the 40 trillion in debt, although that's a huge number that we ought to be paying attention to. We're running at the rate of something like adding 1.6 trillion. Maybe I saw one number this week that under certain circumstances we could hit 2 trillion in additional debt in this federal fiscal year. So it's not just 40 trillion, although that's a huge number in and of itself. It's the fact that there's no control whatsoever over the deficits that we're running that are adding to the debt at a national debt at a remarkable pace. My inbox, I mean, maybe generally speaking, it was sort of a non-event, but my inbox blew up this week because I'm a member of the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, the Peterson Institute, the Concord Coalition, all of whom are focused on the debt issue, all of whom are focused on the Social Security issue. And my inbox just sort of blew up with all sorts of numbers and charts, and sort of like Christmas in a way with all those charts out there.
That's the bad kind of Christmas you don't want to have, Brad. What are you talking about? It's Christmas. Look at all that I just got in my email.
But it's a major event. It's a major milestone that we've hit 40 trillion. It's a major milestone that we're adding to it at the pace that we are adding to it on an ongoing annual basis. And the consequences, I mean, the consequences at the federal level are obvious. The consequences are that interest rates on that debt, because we're having to borrow so much, interest rates on that debt are going up, and we have to price it up to get enough people in to buy the debt to keep this Ponzi scheme going, keep this game going. And so interest rates are going up. The treasuries, which I follow, and for those interested, I publish chart on Sundays on the Facebook and Twitter pages and elsewhere. The interest rates on the 10, 20, and 30-year debt are approaching sort of unheard of levels in terms of peacetime, non-crises periods. The interest rates on the 10-year is above 4%. The interest rates on the 20 and 30 treasury bills are above 5%. And so the consequence at the federal level is we're seeing interest rates on the debt going up, and that means the debt is consuming more and more of the revenues. Sort of this death spiral you get into. The interest on the debt is consuming more and more of the revenues, which is leaving us more and more in deficit going forward. I think the number I saw in all of this scatter going through my inbox, I think the interest number is now above $1 trillion itself. That a large part of the deficit, if we just didn't have to pay interest, we might be close to balance. But the interest on the debt itself is above $1 trillion. I think it's more than any other category. I think this is right. It's more than any other category in the federal budget other than Social Security.
Well, they were talking about, the end of last year, beginning of this year, they were talking about potentially $1.2 trillion in debt service alone this year. It's huge.
Yeah, so we're over $1 trillion. I know for a fact we're over $1 trillion in terms of debt service. So we're just once you get into this spiral, you're running deficits. You need more debt. You're paying higher interest costs to attract people to buy the debt, and so you're having higher interest costs that are adding to the debt, adding to the deficits that are adding to the debt. It's hard to get out. Very, very hard to get out of that death spiral, and we're finding ourselves sort of not at the outer rim. We were at the outer rim maybe 10 or 20 years ago. We're finding ourselves sort of halfway down this death spiral. And as you go down a death spiral, you find it speeds up more and more and more.
Circling the drain. You're painting the picture of circling the drain, getting slower. So it's going to get real fast.
Yeah,
because we're not paying attention. And how do we fix it, Brad? We got 3 minutes here. How do we fix this $40 trillion death spiral?
Well, I'll talk about that in a second. I want to talk about what it means for us in Alaska. The way we're going to fix it is we're going to have to cut federal spending, and the consequence of cutting federal spending is going to be significant for states like Alaska that are heavily dependent on federal spending. There was a Commonwealth North put out some sort of analysis recently that said, the biggest part of our economy is not the oil industry and is not the healthcare industry. The biggest part of our economy is the federal government and federal government spending. And then there was an op-ed in the Newsminer that the head of the title of which was "Washington Counts the Savings from Federal Cuts While Fairbanks Counts the Cost." And it was the fact that Fairbanks has had a decline as we're having statewide, a decline in federal employees, which is having a consequential effect on the local economies. So the effect of the debt is not only at the federal level and not only in interest costs. The effect is also going to be felt at the state level in terms of spending cuts by, at least in Alaska, what in Alaska is one of the biggest contributors to the economy, spending cuts in that, which is then going to result in both increasing the burden on state government, who's going to try to make up for some of this, and increasing the burden on the economy as the federal dollars sort of move out of the economy.
Right. This is the problem. We've seen this coming. We've seen this is not new to those of us that have been watching this, but eventually, we're going to reach that point of either, go, no go. There's going to be a point of no return. Either we can turn the ship around or the whole thing's going to crash. And I don't know where we're at right now. Brad, final thoughts here.
No, the resolution of this is lower spending and increased revenues. We've got to increase revenues into the federal government to offset some of this, and we need to do it quickly. I mean, as I said, we're circling. You were correct in saying what I was doing with my hand. We're circling the drain, and it's getting faster and faster and faster as we get closer and closer to the bottom.
And if we don't do something now, we're going to be in. Well, let's just say it's not going to be pretty. Let's put it that way. I don't know what the fix is, man. The politicians, they know it's there. They know and it's just, they're all running around like, oh, this is fine. I mean, the house is on fire. The rafters are falling in. It's all crashing into the pool and into the dance hall and into our luxury home theater. But that doesn't matter. It's all going to be fine, just fine. And I don't know how you're going to get them to stop it.
I think the thing that's going to trigger, and this again comes from the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, Concord, and others. But I think the increase, the focused thinking around this is the Social Security, the Social Security running out of the surplus they've had or the reserve they've had is going to trigger it. Because what's going to happen I think we're now 3 years away from Social Security running out. Maybe 4 years, but we're getting relatively close to Social Security running out. And what happens when the reserve that's been built up in Social Security, that's been being used to supplement, the current revenues going into Social Security to make the Social Security payments, when those reserves run out, current law provides that triggers a reduction in Social Security payments down to the level that are supported by current revenues. And that's something like, I think the last number I saw was a 20% reduction in Social Security payments. So the belief is that, and there's going to be no general revenues available to support that unless we just really want to, go speeding into the drain. There's going to be no general revenues to solve that problem because we're already running in deficit on general revenue. So there's nothing left. There's nothing there that you can do to help support Social Security. So I think the belief is that Social Security is going to come in first, and that's going to trigger, all sorts of massive problems and a need for a resolution of that. And that in the course of dealing with that, we will have the opportunity also to deal with the deficits we're running, and dealing with the deficits we're running will be a combination of additional revenues, either in the form of additional taxes or cuts in tax expenditures. We've talked about this before. The tax credits at the federal level are over $1 trillion a year, so it's a combination of additional revenues and cuts in tax expenditures, cuts in the tax credits that are out there to raise additional revenues at the same time as you're bringing down spending. That's what it's going to take. And once we do that, then hopefully interest costs on the debt start going down because we're not having to go out and sell as much debt. And so we don't have to have high interest rates in order to get people to buy the debt. Interest costs on the debt start going down. If interest costs on the debt start going down, you have lower expenditures and you're getting closer and closer to balance. So it's a combination of those things. But the general view is we have to have some sort of triggering event. The Congress isn't going to do this, and the administration aren't going to do this naturally. They aren't going to say, "Whoops, we've got to fix this." They aren't going to say that. There's got to be some triggering event. And Social Security looks like it's the triggering event.
What you're saying is the yogurt has to hit the oscillating rotor before anybody will do anything, essentially. Yeah. I mean, the poo's got to go through the sieve before anything. Nobody's going to, we could see it coming, but you know what? We'll wait until it crashes and then we'll do something because, that's the thing. Harold says, you forgot there's another option. Grow the economy. That was the other thing. Grow the economy. Expand the private sector by a factor of 20%, and that'll fix it.
Well, that's another form of spending cuts. I mean, you're reducing the government. The I get into these debates with my friends up in DC. The problem, when people usually say grow the economy, what they say is, tax cuts, leave more money in the hands of the people. Well, that's great as long as you reduce spending. Otherwise, if you reduce taxes and you don't reduce spending, or indeed, as has happened in this administration and prior administrations, you increase spending, the deficit keeps growing and makes the problem worse. So growing the economy isn't just a function of reducing taxes, as a lot of people go around saying. It isn't just a function of that. You have to reduce you have to reduce the revenue out at the same time you're reducing revenue in. And we haven't done that.
Absolutely. And again, we've known about this, as you said, for years. We've been circling that drain on the outside for a long time, and now we're starting to make our way towards the middle faster and faster and faster. Rick, go ahead.
No, I've been through this before. I mean, I sort of came to maturity on these issues during the Clinton administration, and I've been around long enough. I remember Ross Perot, and I remember Ross Perot's charts. And Ross talking about this issue back in 1990, in the campaign of 1992. And I remember the Clinton administration. I mean, Bill didn't come naturally to this, but he got on board. I remember the Clinton administration really, addressed the issue and sort of got it under control. And then we spiraled out of control again. But there are ways to do this. We've been through this rodeo before. There are ways to do it, but
that was the last time we had it under control, was because of Ross Perot. He didn't win, but he had a big enough of an impact that the Clinton administration had to do that. Rick's got a special request. We're 40 seconds out. Next Tuesday, can you come on with all good news? I'm getting tired of truth, sorry, but we need good news because we're taking too much Advil and coffee and vodka. I think I should add vodka at the end of there.
Michael, I think the way that I could come on with good news is not come on. I mean,
whoa.
It might be a breather for everybody.
That's dark, Brad.
I look for good news.
I know. You know what? The truth is the truth. That's all you can say. Brad Keithley, Alaska's first sustainable budgets. Brad, thanks so much.
Well, that's a wrap for another week's edition of the weekly top 3 from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Thank you again for joining us. Remember that you can find past episodes on our YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Substack pages, and keep track of us during the week on Facebook and Twitter. This has been Brad Keithley, Managing Director of Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We look forward to you joining us again next week for the next edition of the weekly top 3.